When you think of the last time that you were inspired, when you contemplate the last time you had an opportunity to feel some sort of charge, one ingredient sticks out. And this is the second part of what we started last week, but it's one ingredient that moves your needle. It's one ingredient that gets our cylinders firing, and that ingredient is vision. If you don't know how to handle vision, your meetings as an executive are going to go down the tubes. I don't want that to happen to you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference. So let's dive in.
So I was sitting at the final meeting of our church's capital campaign in 2014. I remember being there. We were at a banquet hall, and we had about 180 people present. And we were all able to take part in speaking. But really, they were there to hear the senior pastor. They were there to hear his vision and his message. And he stood up on the platform, and I don't remember exactly what he said. But I remember the final component landing on vision and the future for the church and where we fit in the church and how the church is going to move and how we're going to be building this massive structure and how it's going to be historic. And when he started speaking, overwhelmingly, the room was filled with this electricity. And I'm not a person that thinks like you have to have this emotional push every time you speak. No. But vision has an inextricable emotional component. And it's a vision that most executives don't tap into. And I'll explain to you why that is. And once you understand why it is, you're going to recognize some of the pitfalls that you've had in your own meetings, unfortunately. Because when we think of our own meetings, our meetings are sadly lacking in vision. They don't feature that kind of emotional push and pull. And I remember there were people from all different levels of leadership at that meeting, at the church meeting. And I clearly remember the enthusiasm that we all had, myself included, to give and to commit to giving a certain amount of money over a course of years. And when you are in this kind of work, it's difficult because you're asking essentially for cards and handwritten cards on it of what people are promising to give. But it really, the action starts after. But that vision has to be strong enough to sustain. Well, believe it or not, most of you are not running a church capital campaign, but you are running an organization where you have to use your words to sustain the people on your teams long after the meeting ends. So there's a lot at stake. It's not just, did I get through the meeting? Did I cover my slides? But why your meeting isn't effective is because it's lacking this component of vision. When you think about people that have spoken about this, Simon Sinek comes to mind, and he wrote that book, Start With Why. And in his book, one of the things that he says, and it's absolutely true across the board, regardless of what field you're in, is that people are motivated not by tasks and doing a good job, but they're motivated by purpose. They're motivated by what they're doing and how it matters. Now, yes, some people, they love doing a good job. They love to make sure that their work is of a higher quality, a higher caliber. And I will never discount those people. But the motivation that lasts happens when people believe that what they're doing is making some sort of a difference. So one of the ways that an executive can shortcut this, if you want to shortcut this, is opening every meeting, reminding people of what their mission is and reminding people of how the mission is what drives the action. Because here's where we run into problems as leaders. We spend the majority of our time talking about what. We have to do this. This is the final quarter's numbers. We have to get this many people staffed in this position. We have to have, and we go for the what, but we divorce it from the why. And then before you know it, your people are leaving with a bullet list of things that they need to do, but no internal motivation by which to do them. And this is a very dangerous place as a leader, because if people don't see what they're doing and how it relates to the bigger picture, they are going to lose heart, and they're going to require discipline, and they're going to require you to course correct them. And I would rather coach from the front and give them that motivation and that vision up front and have them be engaged than have to try to reverse engineer that engagement on the back end. It's going to take a lot longer. So here's some things that will help you. I'm going to give you a couple points that you want to consider, because I believe in being practical, and I want you to be able to take this to your next meeting and talk about this with more confidence. First of all, when you are talking about vision, you want to tell stories and not stats. Stories, not stats. Stats are important. Those of you that are high analytical, you need the stats, but that's not going to sustain. There needs to be a story beneath those stats. Your data has to tell a story. I've said this over and over again. And people that are in technical roles have trouble with this because they believe that the data is the end all, but it's not. The stats actually are to lead to a greater picture. So I'll give you an example. When you are talking about money you raised in a charitable way, and I'll give you one that we use for the capital campaign. And forgive me for using church language, but you're smart enough and you're understanding enough of what happens at a church. I had bought these little, I don't know what they're called. They're like LED illuminated candle things. We were going to do ones with actual fire, but fire codes and whatnot. So what I did was we lined the outside of the banquet room the night of the commitment. And each of those candles were strategically placed where there was one in the center table, and there was ones on the outside, there was ones along the stage. And then what we did is when we got up to start the campaign, I made everybody look at the candles, and whoever was speaking, it was me or the senior pastor. And I said, each one of these candles represents the soul of a person who gave themselves to Jesus this past year at our church. There were hundreds. Just a snapshot of what our church does. And people got excited because they looked around and they recognized that those candles weren't decorations. They were symbols of the changed lives that the church is used by God to produce. That story was enough to get us rolling into the next set of discussion points. But it's that real connection to what your organization or the team is doing. You have to give them vision. Now, it might not be so lofty as these souls or changed lives, but it could be look at how many people whose lives we made easier. If you're in cybersecurity, look at how many companies were protected from evil attackers trying to get data and trying to hack to get money. Like, this is what we do. And you paint that picture of where the company has succeeded, but you use stories. I had another one, and I may have mentioned this before, but somebody that I was working with, they worked for the food bank, a local food bank in their city. And they stood up and they told the story of a woman who woke up on a Saturday and realized she didn't have enough money to buy diapers for her children, not until the following Monday. And she was afraid that her children were going to have to live in filth through the week. And it was a heart-wrenching story. But then she talked about the food bank's intervention and how the food bank actually provided diapers for not just a week, but 2 weeks to float her until her aid came in. This was such a remarkable story. Who wouldn't want to give to that vision? Well, your team wants to serve a vision that is greater. And you want to share customer stories, client journeys, team successes, so that people remember why they're doing what they're doing. If you're doing this and neglecting it, you're doing so to your peril. Because truthfully, I'm not going to motivate people with my dynamic speaking. Stories are going to motivate people. So you want to be, as an executive, a collector of these stories. When I worked for Dale Carnegie, as I do work for Dale Carnegie still, as I facilitated, I would pick up stories from previous classes. Oh, one time so-and-so came in and they were having anxiety because of running meetings, and then they took the program and now boom, they're excited. One time this person was put on blast because they weren't getting along with people. Now they're being invited to happy hour. People want to be around this person. These stories, just little snippets. It doesn't have to be this person was born in 1978 at this hospital. It doesn't have to be that way. But you want to make a story compelling enough to tie into the vision. So tell stories, not just stats. Tell stories, not just stats. Next of all, you have to become amazing at painting a picture of the future. This is vision. One of my mentors said vision is a picture of a future state that does not now exist. The better you are at being the Bob Ross painter of vision, the greater the chances of your team hitting that vision. But you have to paint the picture. You have to use words like imagine, or once we get over this hurdle, or once we surpass this stage in our building process, or once we have accumulated enough revenue, we will, and then paint that picture as detailed as you can make it. We'll be able to have a team that runs this project. We will have more people coming to us. We're going to have a technical infrastructure that serves our clients in a way that puts us in the Forbes list of most innovative people and innovative teams. Whatever that vision is, you want to use vision. And you talk about what will be true once we pass this point. This will be true. Once we get to this point, we will have retired X amount of debt from the company's ledger. Once we get to this point, we will have hired X amount of employees to run the company, whatever it is. But you want to picture it. I always use the clip, and there's probably almost in every episode, but remember the Golden Girls, Sophia. She would sit there, they'd be at the table in the kitchen where they'd have all their meaningful conversations. And Sophia would go, picture it, 1922, Sicily. There she was, and she paints this vivid picture of what happened at this time and how, something crazy happened. Of course, it's comedic and filled with all these innuendos, but the point is the point that vision by picture works. And the quicker that you can get acquainted with the picture of the future state that doesn't exist for your team, the quicker your team is going to adopt that vision as their own, and they're going to get excited, they're going to get motivated, they're going to dream again about what it's like to work for your company. And trust me, they want that. The most unmotivated person, they don't want to go to work and be unmotivated. They don't want to come to your meetings and want to poke their eyes with paper clips. They want to come excited to be a part of what the organization is doing. That's why stories work. That's one of the reasons why, and I this is the second time I'm mentioning him, but one of the reasons why the pastor that I work with, that founded the church, is so successful, because he is a storyteller. He has a 2-story minimum for every conversation. He has stories on top of stories of things, miraculous things that God has done, that he's experienced, that he's seen in people's lives, that he's seen in his children's lives. He's a story depository, and he will regurgitate them to accommodate the purpose of getting his vision across. It's a brilliant tool, and it's underutilized by you so frequently. You have stories. You have stories for days. If you're in leadership, these stories, you can't get enough of them. And if you're worried about forgetting them, I'd recommend opening an Evernote document or opening your Apple document. Notes document, and just start putting the time Mary said this in a meeting, the time we were able to help this company do this, the time that we were able to raise this amount of money, the time that we were able to be this far under budget. Put those stories in a file, because they will serve you forever. And we talked already, my company, the company that I literally started, is called Glint Storytelling Group, because that's how important stories are. But they're so underutilized by leaders. Leaders try to do all the heavy lifting for their own meetings. The stories should do the muscle. So get those stories, share customer experiences, share team successes, and get people motivated to be a part of that vision again. Next of all, when you think of that painting the picture, picturing things, you want to make sure, again, that you use language that will excite people. Go, next year we're going to be a little bit better, all right? No, you want to use excitement. We're not just going to be a little bit better. Next year we're going to have 50% more blah, 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 widgets, 50% more of this, 50% more of that, whatever it is. But you want to use bigger language, stronger language. Don't just minimize the vision. Get them to live inside the vision, okay? Now, the next component of the vision, we got about stories, not stats, painting a picture of the future, and the final middle component is you have to do the heavy work, and I've already talked about this, of tying every role to that vision. That means that the person in the mailroom has to see what impact they're making in the boardroom. They have to see what type of impact they're having on the organization. Because if they don't, they're out. They're going to check out. Sure as you're born, they're going to collect the paycheck, they're going to do what they have to do, and then they're going to be gonzo history out of there, as my dad used to say. This is vital. They have to know what role they serve. And you have to be the one that is diligent enough to connect it. So when that person who is obsessed with data comes in and is like, okay, yeah, I just gave you spreadsheets. You have to tell them how those spreadsheets are navigating the ship of the decisions made that are going to get them to that picture. If it wasn't for John and his attention to detail, we would not have gotten to X amount of money in revenue. You have to be able to tie what they're doing to where you are going. If you don't tie what they're doing to where you are going, then they're going to lose sight of that, and they're going to feel like what they're doing is drudgery, nothing more. They're going to look at the fun you're having on the executive level. Oh man, we made this decision and boom, we served all these clients and great, we fed all these homeless people and boy, we built all these buildings. Like, yeah, well, the person that is sitting there has to realize what part they played in that. And you have to be selfless enough to start to recognize that you're giving them an opportunity to partner with you. But you have to see things from their perspective. You have to have empathy. You have to have sympathy. You have to start to see that what they do matters. Now, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Here's the quiet part. You are going to say that there are some people on my team and they don't contribute to the vision at all. I have the meeting and they're not really contributing. And I don't know where they're tied into the vision. Two things come to mind when I hear this. First, number one, you don't know the vision clearly enough and haven't painted the picture big enough to understand where their role fits. So this is a moment of self-discovery for you. As the leader, understand that vision so much that you see how it all ties together. Second option, a little more uncomfortable. Maybe they're not a fit for the team. If you're bringing them on and they're doing nothing for your organization, if they're just there, taking up space, taking up revenue, taking up time, maybe you got to either reconfigure their role or you got to help them succeed in another role somewhere else. I know that's hard to believe, but I don't like when people ask me that question because I've been asked that quite a bit when I facilitate things. Is they'll say, well, so-and-so doesn't do anything. I mean, they're just worthless. They're just useless. They don't do. I'm like, well, what do you have them there for? Oh, well, I mean, they do. And usually I get them to, yeah, they do. That was a good way to end. They do this certain task. And it's good. Okay, I'm like, okay, good. Now tell me how that task ties into the bigger narrative, the bigger picture, the vision. Because if they're doing nothing, if they're adding nothing, if they're causing nothing but problems, this is an HR discussion. This is not a discussion to have with them. This is you got to figure out, okay, why aren't you thriving in this role? And your job as a leader is to get everybody to thrive in their role. Ken Blanchard said, people who feel they belong give their best. And if you can't articulate how they belong, their best is almost certainly not going to take place. You're going to get a mediocre employee who's not excited about your meeting. They're not excited about their role. They're barely excited about the job, the company. And you have to make sure that they understand their role. All right? So tie every role to the vision. Okay, it's a short one today. So I have one final thing. And if this is helping you to kind of think through your talking points, know that this is what I do for clients. At Glint Storytelling Group, we help you to get more confidence to lead with the vision and the passion that you already have. So podcast@samuellinton.com if you'd like to work with us. We will find a product that helps you in your business or helps you individually. But the bottom line is we all get better when the leader gets better. So let me know how I can help you, please. And the last thing that you want to have at the meeting. Now remember, this has all been in the context of meetings, and you want to share vision in meetings as best you can, as much as you can, is you want to end with some sort of rallying call or a huge call to action, where when they're left, it's not just like a cut in the middle of a scene and it's over, but when they're leaving, they feel genuinely like they know what they're doing, and they, number two, are excited to do the thing that you've wanted them to do. So meetings that end with momentum usually are productive. Meetings that end with a fizzle, like, oh, okay, good, that was fun. All right, so it's 12, so we'll see you next week. Have fun. Those are going to be lost into whatever happens next in that worker's life. But a meeting that ends on a rallying call, like, hey, here's how we're going to win this week. We are going to engage more people on the phone than ever before. We are going to bring more people to this high-stakes event than ever before. You're going to be the vessels that bring people into this company, whatever. And the thing about this, when you're doing a rallying call, you want to use collective or inclusive language. This is how we win together. This is what our team looks like. This is what our mission is. You don't want to say, hey, to contribute to my mission or the mission. No. You want to internalize that with an our, we, us. This is the way you win when it comes to inclusive language. It's not just for DEI purposes, it's used for that as well, but inclusive language is a way to get people to feel like they belong to your team, even if they're new to the team. So if you get them to feel that as quick as possible and then reaffirm it with a way that you speak about how we are going to win this week. We are going to stack up some major gains this week. We are going to continue to put the pedal to the metal this week. And I'm not for cliches, but you get the picture because I don't know your business. But you want to make sure that people understand that this is a we thing. This isn't a John, Sam, Ron, Alex thing. This is an all of us thing. We are all responsible for the vision. And once all are involved, the results that you get are going to be exponential. They're going to be life-changing. But you have to do the hard work of casting that vision, because if you're the leader and you're not doing it, nobody else is going to do it for you. If you have somebody else in that meeting and they're the one that gets up and they start painting a picture about what things will look like and how excited they are, you should have them lead the meeting. Seriously. Or you should have them be on the executive team. But this is your job as an executive. You want to make sure people understand that they are making a difference. So, to cap it off, we talked about when it comes to vision, it's not just the what, it's the why. Number 2, we talked about how you should focus on stories, not just stats. Number 3, you have to become Bob Ross when it comes to painting a picture of the future. When it comes to that picture, you have to, number 4, be able to tie, or I should say number 3, be able to tie everybody's role into that vision. And then to cap it off, you want to end with a rallying call of getting people together on the same page. You can have a productive meeting. Your meetings aren't going to suck if you're willing to do the work, put the time in, and make people feel important, and do it with gumption, with clarity, and with enthusiasm. So with that said, thank you for tuning in to the Sam Linton Show. Shift your mindset, find your voice, change your world. We'll see you next week.